And today is 2/22? 2/22. Okay.
20.11, understanding population.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we had this kind of population spread out in their habitat. Our population size, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we would say usually n equals 14. And they're kind of, I was going for sort of random spacing. They're pretty randomly spaced. They're not too crowded. But what if we took that same 14 individuals and put them in that space? We haven't changed the size of the population. We really haven't changed the way that they're distributed. They're still pretty random. But I think all could agree we've changed something, haven't we? What did we change? The size of the area that they're occupying, and we call what we have changed is the density. Okay? We've changed the density of the population. And we can define density. We can say that density is how crowded the population is. And if we want to have a more scientific sounding definition for this, we could say that density is the number of individuals per unit of area. Okay, the number of individuals per unit of area. And you are probably familiar with density from physical science. Do you remember talking about density in physical science? You probably did a density lab. You probably measured pennies if you had Mr. Voorhees, or I think Mr. Stubbe did the same thing. What was density there? Mass per unit volume. Here we're talking about individuals per unit area. So they're similar. It's always, the number of things in a given area of space. So how crowded the population is, or the number of individuals per unit area. So that's population density. Let's talk about someplace like this. In terms of the density of any species that you can see, and let's talk about any animal species you can see. I don't see a single animal in this picture, actually. I'm sure there are living things in the picture. I'm sure that there are probably some sorts of little creatures living up on these mounds, and this looks like great habitat, and I'm sure there are fish and bugs and mussels and clams. What?
Bacteria.
Oh, tons of bacteria. But we can't see anything. And bacteria we're talking about animal species right now. So it's pretty low density. So low density means not crowded. And if we were thinking about this in terms of human populations, human habitation, do you see any humans living in this picture? Me either. I mean, could there be a nice little ranch house right off to the side here? Yeah, there could. This is probably the open range someplace out west. Could there be people who are in this landscape every day? Sure, this could be part of a working cattle ranch. This could be a national park where people are hiking or camping or whatever else. But we don't see anyone. It's pretty low density from a human perspective. It's not crowded at all. From a human population perspective, more or less dense? Significantly. This is very dense. Cities tend to be densely populated. Okay? So when we talk about, this would be high density. The entire state of Wyoming. Okay? Entire state of Wyoming. From a human perspective, there are more cows in Wyoming than there are people. Did you know that? Really? There are literally, and this is not an exaggeration, this is not a hyperbole, this is not a manner of speech, there are more cows in Wyoming than there are people. versus, and it's a big state, it's a huge area. The state of Steak, yeah. Yeah, a lot of those western states are a lot of open range, lots of big cattle ranches. You know, around here we think like a 200-acre farm is a pretty big farm. Out there, people have ranches that are like 10,000 acres. You know, they would look at a 200-acre farm and think, what do you do with that? It's less productive land. It's a very dry landscape. Okay, so very low density. Most of the western U.S. is low density from a perspective of human population. If we come over to some of these little teeny tiny states like Connecticut. Wait, no, that's not Connecticut. Yes, thank you. Massachusetts. I get all those little tiny ones in New England confused. Massachusetts. Much higher density. The entire eastern seaboard. Okay, so Mass. High density. You have a small physical area, and you have lots of people. You have major cities like Boston and Worcester and Lowell, Massachusetts, and you've got urban areas. It is much, much, much higher density than someplace like out west. Okay. So, you know, New York City, which sits down in here. Very high density. Upstate New York. It's dairy farms. It's apple orchards. It's relatively low density. So some states are not uniformly dense. Would you say Columbiana County is very densely populated? If we think about human population? No, I wouldn't. We're pretty, I mean, we are no Wyoming. We have, what, about 100,000 people in the county? If you go into the city of Youngstown, that's higher density. If you go into the city of Cleveland, any city, cities are dense population centers, okay, when we're talking about human population. If we think about wildlife, or if we think about plant life, or we think about bacterial life, do we think that the population density is the same every place? Let's talk about bacteria, since I love bacteria so much, and I think they're so fascinating. Do you think that every single place in this room has an equal density of bacteria? No. Where would the hot spots be? Skin. Humans. Us. Each of you is a little hot spot of bacterial colonization. You know, some random square inch on one of the lab counters back there probably doesn't have a whole lot of bacteria. A random square inch anywhere on your skin is going to be pretty densely populated with bacteria. You're welcome, as you look at your skin later on and think about that all day. Remember, you die without your bacteria. So, do you think that how densely packed a population is changes the carrying capacity? What's the carrying capacity? What's carrying? Okay, good reading. Kevin, were you doing that off the top of your head?
How much shit area hold?
Okay, carrying capacity. So we said carrying capacity is number of individuals an area can support. Yeah, how many individuals it can support. We're going to start talking tomorrow about some very specific types of limiting factors that are related to density. Okay, and we're going to get to talk about death, disease, and destruction, the 3 Ds. It's a great day. So now I'm going to take a break. We're going to stop here with notes, and we're going to talk about seed sale.